I think we'll be here.
It's going to be good.
It is.
So there is a person that's online, that wanted us to have some illustrations, so they did the illustrations. Okay, so. Good afternoon, and we'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the West Valley City Council. It is July 26, 2022, and it is 6:30. We are meeting in the council chambers of West Valley City Hall. We have all members of the council present in person or electronically, except Councilman Whetstone, and he is excused for this evening. We will now turn the time over to Councilman Christensen for our opening ceremony.
Oh, with this last 24th of July and all of the events around it, I was privileged to attend the rodeo last night. And as I listened to them, commentators who I'm sure had a script and everything else, but as I listened to them praise the way that Salt Lake City has received the rodeo and the way that we as pioneers, those of you who came originally and those who have come since, accepted freedom and the ability for us to enjoy things of that nature, it impressed on me the real freedom that we do have in the United States of America and the ability we do have to work with and serve and do as we would like to do within the laws and within the regulations that have been established. And so as we stand tonight and pledge allegiance to the flag, I would ask that you remember those freedoms that we do have. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for that. We now will move to our minutes of July 12th, 2022. I'll turn it to the council for discussion or a motion on the minutes.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you, and those pass. We will now take a presentation by Corey Rushton, who is a member of the Jordan Valley Water Conservancy District, and I'll turn the time to him.
Good evening, council members. Good to see Wayne, Councilmember Fitzmano, and Councilmember Nordfeld on the TV here. So again, my name is Corey Rushton. I'm right here tonight representing Jordan Valley Water Conservancy District, which helps service water in this area. And as the appointee, along with Mayor Lang to that board, I'm here to report to you a little bit about our intent to increase our property taxes this upcoming year. Just for, I guess, the record, Jordan Valley is 8215 South and 1300 West in West Jordan, Utah. And I'm also joined here by Dave Martin, who's the treasurer and CFO, in case, we really want to get into any deep budget questions. But I did provide with you a good budget handout here, which goes over some of the basics of Jordan Valley's budget, service area, as well as what the proposed property tax would do for this year. I think essentially to put the elevator speech of the tax increase in a nutshell this year, it's Jordan Valley has a large growing service area. We're the largest water provider in the state. And with these member agency cities that are fast growing, as well as a retail district, our financial projections are based on meeting water demands and capital expenditures through a three-legged stool of water rates, property taxes, as well as impact fees. And property tax is one of the several funding sources given to us by the legislature to fund the operations, along with user charges and impact fees. And so I think that the big project we have is a multi-million-dollar expansion to our treatment facilities in Harriman. And that'll be funded by, we're going to be issuing probably up to $150 million in new bonds over the next next 5 years in our projections, and it'll increase our debt service. And so the roughly $1 million, 1.7 of additional revenue of this tax increase will go to help the expansion of that treatment plant. I want to, leave you guys some time if you have any questions, as well as I know that there's a scheduled public hearing for this, but maybe want to spend a lot of the details are here. Maybe spend a little more time in the process. If you're probably wondering, like, why is this guy kind of here today and in between us and our business? So, when I was first appointed to, as a member of this city council and was appointed to the board at Jordan Valley, the legislature not only gave Jordan Valley property taxing authority, but it also kind of had this stipulation that in order to levy that property tax, there had to be a majority on the board, be elected officials. And a few years ago, the legislature decided it probably wasn't so important to have elected officials on the board that could directly or indirectly report back to their bodies, but they wanted to have a formal presentation like this to take place. And so now currently our board of 9 only has 5 elected officials: myself, Mayor Lang, South Jordan Mayor, Harriman City Council member, and water trustee from Magna. The rest are community members with certain other expertises and that would also report back to their city. And so that little bit of the change of the legislature has asked us to come here and to receive questions and provide kind of the public input on it. You'll notice that we broke it down a little bit in what the property tax would mean to an average home in business within our service area. I brought my West Valley tax notice here on it, and then note that it is in line with the 7.8% line item. Jordan Valley Water Conservancy District 7.8%, and my taxes are proposed to go up $6.70 along that, which I think would be typical for other West Valley residents on that. So said, if there's any, I think I can let the research speak for itself, let the, your public hearing, like I said, myself here, Dave are here for questions if you have them, but we appreciate the good partnership that West Valley's had with Jordan Valley. I think most notably the ordinance change that you've done this year to help with water conservation has been notable in our operations, as being able to meet demands, and our partnership with Granger Hunter and the other water districts that help us serve here in West Valley. But I think with that, that's probably going to be the end of the presentation, unless any council members have any questions, or if there's anything you'd like me to dive in specifically on this report, which we've also left a few extra copies on the table, or anything specific to our operations, bonding capacity, As well as I think one of the other things that I like to point out during these presentations is that the split payment system of having impact fees, user charges for water, as well as bonding, or as well as the property tax, is also really good for I think the often overlooked public good of water, which includes fire protection, flood control, recreation opportunities. Part of this, the property tax that if you go up to Jordanelle or Deer Creek and that comes out of property taxes on that. Water, groundwater management, environmental, endangered species, and increase in value to entitled lands for some of the public good that also comes out of a property tax increase. So that was a lot. Anything, Mayor, that you'd like me to comment on, or should we leave it there?
That's probably plenty unless they have questions. Does the council have any questions for Mr. Rushton?
Last year I went and
Good
did this
job.
at South Jordan and they had so many questions, but they were all good. But I think that's interesting about South Jordan is they receive 100% of their allotment through Jordan Valley. So they have a lot more questions on things because they're a lot more dependent on things. But again, thank you for your time for allowing me to come and present you today on this proposal. And we will have a public hearing like any other tax change you have down at the district for those that want to come and comment that for a final board disposition on that in August.
That's August 10th at 6 o'clock?
Yeah.
Correct? At the 8215 South, 1300 West. Okay. We will now open a public hearing if anyone has any comments concerning the proposed tax increase by Jordan Valley Water Conservancy District. Okay, seeing no one, we will close the public hearing and thank Mr. Rushton and Mr. Martin for coming out tonight. All right, we will now go to our proclamation declaring August as Neighborhood Nights Month. And August 2nd will be our National Night Outs of 2022. And Councilman Christensen is going to read us the proclamation.
Thank you, Mayor. Whereas West Valley City strives to reinforce the importance of crime prevention awareness in the city, and crime prevention events have been planned throughout the month of August, and the National Association of Town Watch is sponsoring a unique nationwide crime, drug, and violence prevention program on August 2nd, 2022, entitled National Night Out. And the 39th Annual National Night Out provides a unique opportunity for West Valley City to join forces with thousands of other communities across the country in promoting cooperative police community crime prevention efforts and police community partnerships. Neighborhood safety, awareness, and cooperation are important themes of the National Night Out program. And the mayor and city council of West Valley City do hereby determine that it is essential that all citizens of West Valley City be aware of the importance of crime prevention programs, and the impact that their participation can have on reducing crime, drugs, and violence in West Valley City. Now, therefore, the mayor and city council of West Valley City do hereby proclaim August as Neighborhood Nights Month and August 2nd, 2022 as National Night Out 2022 in West Valley City, and encourage residents to participate in the various activities taking place throughout the city in the month of August.
Thank you. Okay, we will now go to our comment period. We will now accept public comment. Comment period is limited to 30 minutes total. Any person wishing to comment shall limit their comments by 5 minutes. Upon recognition by the mayor, we will accept. You may approach the microphone, and if you have not signed in, give us your name and address. If you've signed in, just your first name, please. All comments will be directed to the mayor. No person addressing the council during the comment period time shall be allowed to comment more than once. And speakers should not expect a debate between the council And you, this is your time, 100%. We can comment after, staff and the council can comment after. So I will now open the public comment period. And we will go with speaker one. Mark.
Good evening. My name's Mark D. Whitaker. I'm a write-in candidate for representative in the state of Utah, number 33. And I really, right now, have only one interest, and that is the building of a playground for Fairborn Park. This would be a combination slow pitch softball and little league baseball field. This is due west of the West Valley City Library. And I think that's a nice piece of ground, and it is directly connected through Fairborn Park. And I was told that that city already owns that property. Is that correct?
It's your time.
It's my time. Well, I think the weather would cooperate. I'd like to get started on building that particular facility right away. The weather's been hot, 104 degrees today, so that's that. Other than that, I'll just say that I think that President Trump should be disqualified from ever being president again because of what he did on January the 6th of 2021. And that's about, give you some idea of, I have a national perspective. I do eventually want to become governor and eventually become president of the United States. So I have quite a few comments and will have quite a few comments over the next few weeks until election time. I just hope that everybody in this area would vote for me, despite the fact that I am a write-in candidate. Usually I'm on time, but I've been rather sick. As you can see, I'm missing a leg, but I guess if I have only 5 minutes, I better take 5 minutes every week to talk to you about my ideas, because I got a good many of them. I hope that we can find a better president for sure. My candidacy would be in 2024 for governor and 2032 for president of the United States of America. And that's about all my comments right now. For now, though, I want to build this playground for Fairborn Park, and I want to get started as soon as the weather cools. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to speaker two.
What?
Oh, just the next person.
Oh, yeah, I see number
Thank you.
2. Oh, yeah, I see.
Good evening. My comment is primarily concerning with question 9A that's on your agenda. So
Oh, so then it'd be better to wait for that.
okay.
Sorry, and I
That's
forgot to explain that, so thank
you.
you. All right, so anyone else wanting to speak to a certain item on the agenda, it's more appropriate to speak to it at that time. So if you know you're that, just wave me off. So Chris Clifford, the other. Okay, Mr. Visock.
It was faster than I thought it was going to be. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Jim Visock. My information that's on there. Yes, Monday I went out and handed out my 8 Clean and Beautiful Yard Awards. most of the area that I had was in Councilman Hune's area. A little bit in Councilman Harmon's area. But it leads me into talking about code enforcement. What are they doing? I mean, there's some beautiful homes out there, but there are some, I couldn't believe that they're allowing them to have the properties that way. A couple weeks ago, I didn't get to the code enforcement part. I want to challenge you guys to go out in your area and look and see what is not happening and why. We've got 9 code enforcement employees. And to me, they're not being very productive. Changes need to happen in the code enforcement. I know they're talking with the assistant city manager, changes are happening. But 9 employees, and it doesn't seem like it's happening for our city. We want, we don't want to really have to fine people. We want more of a compliance and educate. That's what a lot of my hometown stuff is. But a lot of these areas are outside of my hometown, and we can't have code enforcement people when realtors call in who own property and they say, oh, reach out to the my hometown people. They'll help you with that issue. And you're all hearing it from the resident. We've had a couple come up and say that has got to stop. The code enforcement guys and gals need to do their job. Before I run out of time, I want to jump right to the boots and cleats. What a great event. It was thrown together in 3 weeks. West Valley City Police Department were out there. There had to be 100 kids out there. And I say kids from 6 years old till 17 years, all different skill levels. And they had a blast. Chief Jacobs was out there, even throwing around the ball. I couldn't get her and the DCs to do a 40-yard dash, but I tried. It was such a great event. We need to make that an annual thing. It was fun. They enjoyed them. I couldn't believe they were doing 40-yard dash in their complete gear. That's amazing. And it was hot. So I wanted to get that in. I will go back up into my thing, back into the code enforcement. We'll have this mystery person going out and doing the evaluation of the city. I think it's part of his budget. So Mr. Morris is gonna have them do that. This should be their guideline. The city puts out this pamphlet, 12 elements to a good neighborhood. 10 of them are code violations. This is the guideline they should be using to bring that report in. A handpicked 5 or 6 items that can be manipulated should not be it. This should be the guideline. And the city already puts it out. Parking, I'd like to see 1 or 2 of the code enforcement guys go into parking. And because parking is just getting worse. Mayor talked about it a couple weeks ago. You drive on a weekend out in the city. It's just from the this is not a good, from the I want to say dump trucks, but the ones that pick up the cars, tow trucks, parked all over on these narrow streets, constructions, campers, unattended campers parked out on the street throughout the city. It's amazing. Something needs to happen. Parks. Parks. A lot of activities happen in the parks. I don't think our parks are being taken care of. We need to hold accountable from the top person, and let it filter down on the maintenance, upkeep, the care of our parks. Several of them we spent lots of money on, and unfortunately it doesn't look like that, like we're spending that money. We get a lot of people from outside the city. The majority of people that use our park are outside of West Valley City. I learned that last year campaigning. And so my time is just about out. That's all I have tonight.
Okay, thank you. So on the second sign-in sheet, person 1.
Hi, my name is Gowd, and I'm running to be the next Salt Lake County Clerk. I just wanted to come and introduce myself to all of you. Just a little bit of background about me. I'm a lawyer. I've been practicing law now for almost 20 years. I'm a veteran. I served in both the Army Reserves and the Utah National Guard for more than 10 years. During that time, I deployed twice, first to Afghanistan and the second time to help fight ISIS. I think I have the skill set to really take our clerk's office to the next level of transparency, security, and getting voters really engaged in the process. I encourage everyone to check out my website. It's Goud, Goud, the number 4 clerk.com. At that website, you'll see my proposals. I think what you'll find is that they're common sense. They can be implemented under current law, and they're measurable, which means voters will be able to tell whether I've kept my promises to them. My goal is to run a unifying campaign around good ideas for the clerk's office and a positive vision for the future. On my website, you can also see my events. So I encourage people to come to an event if you'd like to meet me in person and talk more. You can reach out if you have any feedback. I respond to all my own emails. I hope to earn everyone's vote here between now and November. And if I win, I look forward to working with all of you. So could I just give you guys a flyer real quick?
Yeah, if you'll just leave them there on the corner, we'll grab them at the end.
Cool. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, speaker 2.
Hello again.
Hello.
My name is Miles Wynn, and I just had a couple things I wanted to mention as I've been kind of doing the last couple of weeks. I wanted to thank you all for just acknowledging my concerns with the fireworks at that last study session and what have you. And I had heard that you said that like resources are stretched fairly thin, and I definitely understand that. And part of me felt like maybe I was coming up here fairly often with complaints without solutions. And so I wanted to maybe approach with some solutions and things that just have popped into my head, as well as just consideration. So as far as the fireworks go, I was actually pretty surprised on Sunday. It wasn't very bad at all compared to the 4th. So that was quite a relief. But I thought, just because you said that the resources were stretched kind of thin, that maybe we could just expand ban areas, and that would cut down on some things as well. Also promoting use of industrial areas for fireworks, because like my potential neighborhood is on the cusp of kind of where industrial turns residential. And so I thought that promoting use of fireworks in industrial areas might be better, as long as people could clean up after themselves and help cut down on some of that trash. But that was kind of what I had to say about fireworks. The other thing I had mentioned in the previous meetings was trash in general, just overflowing trash cans and it flowing out onto the street. And then when trash company comes to pick it up, they dump those trash cans, the loose trash falls onto the street and they don't pick it up. And so I thought that maybe I could suggest more than 1 pickup a week, 2 pickups a week, or just offering extra trash cans to these people at no cost. Because I think it's like $12 a month to get an extra trash can, which adds up. That's $144 a year or something like that. So I thought that was something, obviously it'll hit taxpayers' pockets and what have you, but I just thought that would be a fair consideration for people that are having issues, maybe larger families, with keeping their trash cans, keeping from them being overfilled. So that was something I wanted to offer as far as the trash pickup. I also heard mention of like the recreational vehicles on the streets and the compounding fines and things like that, which I think is great because that'll bring revenue to the city. But I would also like to take into consideration, or have you consider that some of those people may be homeless, and we need to get that figured out too, because that's a huge problem. And they're not going to pay those fees to begin with if they don't have homes. And that, again, if we do have homeless people that have, trailers and things like that on the street, we should be figuring out ways on how to assist them, because that's absolutely necessary, in my opinion, anyway. The other thing that I was listening to in the study session was the Westfest event that you guys had, and I didn't get to attend that, unfortunately, but I will try to make an effort to kind of go to more of those communal events. And something that I kind of just thought about was, after the Westfest thing, you had mentioned how to increase awareness on restaurants and things like that in the city. And I thought it was kind of funny that the eating contests were sponsored by like Chick-fil-A and Krispy Kreme. And so I thought maybe a way to raise awareness for restaurants and local businesses. And I know those companies probably, give lots of sponsorship dollars and things like that and endorsements, but that we should use local restaurants for those contests. Maybe Donut Boy for donuts, or some kind of a chicken restaurant for the chicken eating contest. And I thought that would be an interesting way to raise awareness for those things. The other thing that I want to mention too is I know I was kind of complaining about people driving in my neighborhood very manically and kind of crazily. And my neighborhood in general is kind of a through area to get from like 27th West to 32 West. People will turn off of 27th West, come through my general area and make their way to 32. And yesterday I was walking my dog at like 8 o'clock at night, and these kids were using one of the side streets pretty much as a drag strip. And so I just think that, you know, I noticed there's been repaving and things like that. I think speed bumps should be taken into consideration for residential areas. Just ways to slow people down a little bit. Those flashing signs with the speed radar, it's like a contest. How fast can I go? And it's frustrating, you know, again, because my street in general is right off of 27th West, gets a ton of through traffic. I walk my dog in that area pretty much every night, and I can guarantee that there are people driving very crazily down all the streets I walk on. And then to go back to the trash thing, it's not just on my block. I notice it again when I'm walking my dog quite a bit. So I just thought, you know, again, come here with some solutions rather than just complaining all the time. So that's pretty much all I got. And I used the whole 5 minutes this time. So awesome. Thank you for your
Thank you
time.
so much.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
All right. Was there anyone else that would like to speak in the comment period that did not have a chance to sign up? Okay. And Ms. Kamick, was there anyone online?
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. All right, we will now close the public comment period, and I'll turn it to the council. Well, first, sorry, Mr. Pyle. Without
No problem,
mistake,
ma'am.
forget.
I don't have any comment. I'm good.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you. Now I'll turn it to the council for comments. Okay, seeing none, we will move ahead. All right, we will now go to our public hearings. And the first one will be on application ZT3 2022. And I'll turn the time to Mr. Pyle to introduce that.
Thank you, ma'am. This is a amendment to change the zoning ordinance under Title VII and the condominium ordinance under Title IX in relation to private streets and the development thereof in townhomes, condominiums, other high density type of projects. The council's talked about this for quite some time, exploring different ways to do that. One of the concerns that was originally brought was the efficacy or sometimes lack thereof of PUDs and HOAs to be able to maintain these private streets in the long term, and the council's desire to try to fix that issue. And with that, Mayor, I will turn it back to you.
All right, thank you. Were there any questions or comments from the council? All right, we will now open the public comment period, and whoever would like to go first. And I will need your name and address.
Pete Trebish, 2997 South Burlingame, West Valley.
Thank you.
I was just wondering, because I was reviewing the information that was on the agenda for tonight. And this proposed ordinance change, is there a grandfather clause as to current HOAs that are in existence? HOAs, trailer parks,
No, this is just for developments forward.
from present time forward?
Yes.
Okay, because I did not get that impression reading
Okay.
the documents, because it all sounded like it was from date of West Valley's incorporation to now and
Okay.
forward.
Yeah, no, we would not make you tear up everything and start over.
Okay. Okay, that was that, because that answers everything else.
Okay,
Okay, thank you very much.
thank you so much. Okay, the next person.
Hello, Mayor and Council. I'm
Can we get the name and address?
Chris Clifford, 2715 Swasant Way, Holiday, Utah.
Thank you.
Every time I come, I'm a little concerned that someone from out of the area coming in to talk to the city council is a little cheeky. I've been in and around West Valley City for nearly 32 years. probably one of the largest projects existing in the city, the Maverick Center. The extension of Decker Lake Boulevard that connects 2700 to 3500. All that property we purchased in the late 80s and got it entitled, and together with another significant project that was done at the corner of 215 and 201, the southwest corner, where Peterbilt has their large trucking station. So we've been in and around. In fact, Steve Lehman and I go way back. In fact, Steve was involved in the early project with the extension of Decker Lake Boulevard and creating the special improvement district collaboratively to make that happen. So we're very familiar with what has happened over the years. I'm coming today specifically, and it's probably no surprise, to talk about this ordinance text change. I endorse the Planning Commission recommendation for 3 reasons. The first fundamentally is there is virtually no difference in terms of how detached and attached dwelling units work within the PUD, with minor modifications. Single family functions in the same fashion in a PUD as attached housing. To take away the private streets, which has been fundamentally the design backbone of single family PUDs, and not give them the same consideration as proposed in the language for a new PUD primary street and a new PUD secondary street. It's like designing a car and then taking the wheels off. Doesn't go anywhere. The demands of a PUD for open space and design configuration that provide fundamentally to serve that community, it is virtually impossible, given the fact that they're restricted to full width streets in this consideration. So on the functionality component, I think that this is something that the city council needs to revisit. From a logistics standpoint, and this is part of the remaining developable land in this community. From a logistics standpoint, most of the projects that you're going to be seeing, and you've already been seeing them, are infill locations in these smaller locations where PUDs in particular have been used to design, implement, and develop properties that would otherwise not be developable. I think it's important to consider, again, the remaining housing stock options for housing. And we're faced with an affordability crisis in this country, particularly in this valley with the growth of the city. To eliminate, or not to provide, if you will, these modified street configurations for detached housing is going to significantly impact the ability for infill location development. And third is the fact that the PUD ordinance was designed as a broad, call it an umbrella concept that provided flexibility in the development to eliminate private streets and not provide an adequate substitute that would provide for PUD detached housing is discriminatory, punitive, and in fact may put the city in a situation where those legal issues that would define such discrimination would be challenged. I would suggest that you follow the recommendation of your planning commission, revisit the language to either provide and expand the use of those modified street cross sections, and or add language where those street sections that are applicable to a detached single family would be to add language in a development agreement that would circumscribe the considerations that have been raised in your study session, where Steve Lehman last week, when asked why are not single family detached housing included within the context of this text change. You may recall what his comment was. He felt like that there was a need for sidewalks and thus the full width street. Those types of considerations could be dealt with in the context of a development agreement, utilizing the PUD primary and PUD secondary street profiles to provide the same practical outcomes of moving pedestrians in and through the project. So again, those three fundamental issues I think are problematic as it relates to the language of this text. And I would encourage the city council again to follow the lead of your planning commission. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name's Randy Moore, 9691 South Granite Woods Circle. I had a question and then just a comment or some input on this change. So my question is, we own some properties that have previously had zoning. We just want to make sure, I want to make sure that this does not affect properties that are currently in process of approval, or that would have a development agreement that would specify public or private roads.
So Steve or Nicole, do you want to give him the parameters there?
Yeah, so if for someone that's already applied for a subdivision, they're vested under the rules at the time they applied. Also, if the development agreement specifically references private streets, then even if the subdivision hasn't been applied for, the development agreement would vest them in private streets if it's referenced in the development agreement.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to clarify that because it affects some other properties that we own. And I give you some input on this. As you're aware, we had an application a couple of months ago. We worked very hard to meet this requirement of public streets. We met that requirement. Our townhome development, which I felt was an extremely high quality development, was still denied by the council. So I'm not sure that the public roads are necessarily going to make a difference in some of these developments or not, if the desire is there or not there for the townhomes. But it's interesting because I went through probably 10 site plans on that property to try to work with this. And so I'm very familiar with the challenges that may or may not come up. And I think I'll just give you my thoughts on it. I'm not going to say I'm against it or for it. It solves one problem and it creates another. I said when we came for our application, I like the idea as a developer that they're public roads. We don't have to maintain them. We don't have an HOA fee. They don't have to pay for it. But then you create other problems. And it's intriguing. Every municipality has different directions they want to go. I'm working on a project in Riverton City right now, and Riverton has a lot of little parcels of land that over the years developers will come in and just split an acre or 2 acres or a half acre into these lots. So for years, they had a requirement that you could only have 4 lots on a private road. Then 5 or 6 years ago, they changed it 6 lots on a private road. 2 years ago, they changed it. There's no limit. I'm working on doing a development right now. It's 35 detached lots on private streets. They're in the direction that they want the private roads. And so I'm not, you solve one problem and you create another. Many people move into an HOA because they want some type of oversight by the HOA to enforce parking, to enforce, who comes into the HOA, who leaves the HOA. You lose all of that with a private road. The property that we were working on, you have a situation where you can do this public street, but then you end up with little areas where just to do a little short street that's almost a driveway to a home, where you say every single unit has to be on that public road, you're just not able to serve that. I think there's smaller parcels that are just going to become almost undevelopable. I don't know if it affects commercial, industrial, things of that type. I don't know. Reading the comments, there were some concerns about that. One of the things that's interesting, you'll never have a gated community. There's no way to do a gated community. There's a lot of gated communities that individuals want a gated community. You'll never have a gated community. It's not possible. But like I say, to have the city maintain the roads, I'm not against that. So I think you have to weigh those. My main concern is to clarify previous. So thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Hi, my name is Robert Farnsworth. I live at 7776 Oak Shadow Circle in Cottonwood Heights, Utah. Prior to living there, I lived in West Valley, grew up here. Family settled parts over on 5600 West about 90 years ago. Years ago, I was in front of the council when you were talking about your zoning changes. And this is one of the things that I brought up to you was infill developments. Mr. Moore talked about that just a minute ago. I believe that we are tying our hands on product I guess just the availability of different product types. The 2 things that I wanted to really say to you, Randy just mentioned, the one was gated communities will be gone under this. The nicest PUDs I know, and I've been a real estate sales agent and broker for 38 years. I have sold, leased, exchanged, developed every product type there is. The nicest PUDs I know are gated communities and they're detached. And this text would not allow that to happen. So I just want you to think about that. There's a lot of product types out there, especially in your sustainable zone, that need to be detached housing. And also just really think about that in gated communities, that your nicest ones, PUDs, look anywhere in the valley, and that's what you'll find. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else that's here? All right, we have a couple okay. No problem. Then we'll go to the online people.
My name's Sam Work. I am at 3908 South, 3200 West. And my property is 535 feet long and it's 88 feet wide. So I am one of the people who would be potentially impacted by this negatively if it were to pass. And I say that but I completely support this. My entire neighborhood is made up of properties that were once like this, once just like mine. They're these really long properties, and they've been developed into a property that tends to have a driveway or a private lane along one side, and then a whole bunch of either apartments or townhouses or houses. And the financial impact of having to upkeep that road is such that the upkeep doesn't happen. And you can drive around my neighborhood and it's very obvious that it causes a lot of negative effects for the neighborhood. It really makes the neighborhood look run down. And I would just like to say that I would hope that the gated communities with exceptionally expensive houses are not the only ones that we consider, that those neighborhoods are not the only neighborhoods that matter in West Valley City. There's a lot of neighborhoods like mine that are full of hardworking middle-class people who are never going to live in a gated community. And we just want our communities to also look just beautiful and upkept and taken care of. So I just would like to speak in support of this measure. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Anyone else in this audience? Okay, I'll now turn the time to Ms. Kamick and she can queue up the people that are online.
All right, Mayor, we have two. The first is Matt Watson.
Thank you.
Matt, you should be able to unmute your microphone.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor and Council. I appreciate your time this evening. I just want to echo some of the concerns that were brought up by Planning Commission regarding this ordinance change. I agree with the Planning Commission that a blanket prohibition of private streets would negatively affect the city and developers. It would reduce the tools that the city has in creating great communities. It would also, create that lack of flexibility that has kind of been talked about tonight. This is kind of the purpose of the PUD. Along with vacant redevelopment parcels that can be challenging, other opportunities such as gated communities would not be possible, as has been mentioned tonight as well. Other concerns that the commission mentioned about negative impacts of the additional asphalt width. A lot of times private roads are narrower than what the proposed cross sections are that are being proposed to be added. So even with the new sections, these exceed International Fire Code, and many private roads would still be smaller than those. Some of the commissioners brought up, just the additional asphalt and the heat that causes, the additional storm drain because of impervious surface area, but also speeding would be an issue. Due to the nature of townhomes and condominium developments, the driveways, the parking stalls, you're not going to have on-street parking. And so you've got 29 feet of asphalt. It's going to look like a wide road in these small developments. And so speeding will become a problem. And that's in areas where, we tend to have a lot of children. So that would be a concern. As Ben has mentioned, it's the positives and the negatives. And I understand the council's concern about burdening homeowners with the cost of paying for these improvements while also paying their property taxes. But this is also similar to the open space in these communities. These residents are still paying taxes for city park improvements, but also having to pay to maintain their HOA landscaping. And ordinance requirements, some of these communities have to have as much as 50%. Half of their community is open space, and that's a big cost. So it's very similar to what you're seeing with the roads. And there may be other opportunities to help with this, as opposed to just banning private roads. Options might be, to include with an MDA that reserve studies have to be done by the developer. Currently state statute doesn't require a developer to do a reserve study during developer control, but an MDA developer could agree to doing a reserve study and then having to make sure that reserve study is followed as far as the amount that would be contributed to reserves in the budget. And this would help homeowners, as an HOA budget is set up from the beginning, homeowners buying would be able to see a real number of what the HOA costs. It's kind of one of those things where the bad mechanic gives all the other mechanics the bad name. Of course, there are developers who try to have that HOA fee really low for sales initially, but I can tell you in our developments, we want to make sure that our HOAs are well funded, that our budgets are accurate. And so part of that would just be with that MDA and requiring that reserve study, and then requiring that reserve study be followed as far as the amounts going to those reserves. And obviously, as a project gets started, that may have to be subsidized by the developer. But again, that just ensures that money is being set aside for the future and to get that maintenance done. Again, the commission, I think just the reduced flexibility, just taking that tool away from the city and from developers. And you just add this ordinance on top of already requirements with open space and requirements for parking. And it's just, making it increasingly complicated to develop not even small parcels. I would say it makes even larger parcels more challenging as well, to the point of, or reducing opportunities. And it was brought up as well, housing demand, just recently in the last few weeks has gone down due to interest rates going up, but housing demand really has not gone down, and it's just become unaffordable. And the additional requirements like these just add to that unaffordability and or housing supply shortage. So I appreciate your time this evening. And again, just like to reiterate, I think the Planning Commission has the right idea that the flexibility is still needed, and this is still private roads are still a good tool for the city. And just to consider those things that you might lose out on, like the gated communities, and maybe other options such as reserve studies and things like that being required in MDAs. Thank you for your time this evening.
Okay, thank you. The next one, Nicole.
The next speaker is Justin Bear, and Justin, you can unmute your microphone now.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. My name is Justin Bear. I'm an attorney with the firm Hershey Bear and Clayton. We're at 68 South Main Street in Salt Lake. I represent a company called Summit Milling Land LLC, and that company owns property in West Valley, located at 6507 West, 5400 South. I emailed 3 documents, and I hope that you've all received those and can pull those. I just wanted to take a quick look at my client's property as an example of why we believe that just a blanket prohibition on private streets would fundamentally harm various property owners. The first exhibit is, I've called it Exhibit 1 is the title. It has a title on the top of 6507 West, 5400 South. You can see that property is a flag lot that just touches briefly on 5400 South, and would be the sole access point for this property. The distance from the top of the flag lot adjacent to 5400 South and down to the main parcel is about 420 feet. The property in that upper right-hand corner is owned by Rocky Mountain Power. On the west, you have the Mountain View Corridor, and on the east is the Mountain View Corridor, and on the west is a mining operation. Exhibit 2, as you look at that, it has an address of 5710 South Mountain View Corridor. And these images I pulled from Salt Lake County's website. And as you look at that blue box, it's just south of the property that we just looked at. That property it's not adjacent to a public road. It has no opportunity to connect to a public road unless it were to go through that northern lot. And my client owns both of these parcels. They have planned to develop them simultaneously, but without the ability to connect to 5400 South, this south parcel would be completely landlocked. As we've reviewed the ordinances right now, any public street would have to comply with West Valley engineering standards. And without going into them, the standard as of 2020 is 3.1.9.1, talks about roads with a single access point to a public street must end in a cul-de-sac, and that road cannot be longer than 750 feet. As you look at Exhibit 3 that I emailed you, there's a blue line, and I just used the measurement tool on Salt Lake County's website that shows the length of that northern parcel from 5400 south down to the southern boundary is 1200 feet. And the length of the southern parcel is 1300 feet. So if the only possibility is a public street and that street is limited to 750 feet, it really has the impact of landlocking these parcels and making it impossible for any development. This property is currently in the manufacturing zone, so the possibility of development there would largely be business. But the blanket prohibition on private roads would really impair any development on these properties. And so we believe that there should still be some flexibility. The current ordinance does restrict it restricts private streets, and that's in the section 7-13-704 as it already exists. But it has a language that gives the Planning Commission the ability to make findings regarding whether the most logical development should allow a different configuration. So in the ordinance as it exists, there is some flexibility that the Planning Commission has to determine the best configuration. And again, looking at my client's property as an example, if this ordinance were passed and there was a blanket prohibition on private streets, these properties would essentially be landlocked. So we request that the Planning Commission's recommendation be followed and that this ordinance be denied. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Was that it, Nicole?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. All right, we will now close the public comment period, public hearing, and turn it to the council for comments or a motion.
Just a couple things. First, thanks for your comments. Appreciate those. We talk about, there was talk about lack of open space, lack of flexibility. And while Randy's back there, while we didn't approve Randy's project, he was flexible. He had open space. And so I don't know if that argument is holds weight there. Gated communities, we talked about that in the study meeting, that we only have a couple gated communities in West Valley and haven't had any in a few years, I think. Is that right, Steve? And don't see, other than maybe some senior communities, we might see that, but I don't see that happening in our community. As far as the last comment, public comment about manufacturing, I wouldn't be opposed to, and if we can, Steve, I don't know, excluding manufacturing zoning for private streets and allowing them to have private streets. I know Steve Lehman talked about another property that has a private street for access of their manufacturing, and I think it was a trucking company. So those are my comments.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I'm gonna put forward a motion to approve ZT3 2022 with the comment that we exclude manufacturing from this ordinance.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. One clarifying. So Steve, is this affected? Does this ordinance affect manufacturing?
As written now, yes.
Okay. So so you can amend it with what Councilman Harmon said?
Yes, just to clarify, I understand to be excluding manufacturing zones.
Correct.
Yes. Okay. Well, let's ask this. Can townhomes and condos and single-family homes built in manufacturing?
Not residential. You could have a commercial condominium like an
Okay.
office building, but not residential condominiums.
Okay. All right.
Just another comment on that. I think part of our discussion was the lack of funding of these associations when they have their private streets. I would think that there's better backing if it's a manufacturing development. So I think that would make sense.
Okay, thank you. All right, any other comments from the council?
Yes, I have one more, Mayor. Thank you. Just want you to know is that we study thoroughly about this regarding this matter. We just want to support the residential, the people in those area very much. To support them is to be fair with them. They pay double taxes and they have just like Sam brought up earlier. So many things happen in that private street, and we're talking about HOA. My sponsor, they brought me here from Hillsboro, Oregon, and he's attorney for HOA. And every time he came home and he talked about HOAs. There's so many problems there. Another thing is I was in Eagle Mountain long ago, and we formed about 50 houses. It's a 1 acre lot, and good size homes there, and they create a HOA. And later the guy, years gone by, and one guy came by and purchased a house in front of the entrance. And he said, well, I don't like this color of the house. I want to change the color of the house. And the barn too, big barn. And it's not supposed to be an HOA. And a big argument between that group of people there had a meeting, and turned out the SOA is no longer a fact. We're not talking about mismanagement too. So I just want to bring it up to you is we studied thoroughly about this, and we just want to go forward with this matter tonight. And I think this is going to be good for the city.
Okay, seeing no other comments, I'll turn it to Ms. Kamic for a roll call vote.
Councilman Fitzie Umanu.
Aye.
Councilman Harmon.
Yes.
Councilman Hune.
Aye.
Councilman Christensen.
Yes.
Councilman Nordfelt.
Yes.
And Mayor Ling.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, thank you. We will now move to application SV 2022. And I'll turn it to Mr. Pyle for an explanation.
Thank you, ma'am. Back in 1932, Arnold and Areva Peterson dedicated 33 feet of their property to Salt Lake County for a future public highway. This is at 70th West and 54 South on land that Northrop Grumman currently owns. And as you can tell, or anybody who's familiar with the property out there, that public highway was never built, and the property has changed hands many times since then. So in a recent examination of title records, this easement was found, and we're looking at final plat approval to vacate the perpetual easement and get that off the books and clean up the property. It's important to note that this vacation will not have any force or effect on any franchise rights of any utilities in the area, and any holders of any existing improvements or whatever are also protected and will not be affected by vacating the easement.
Okay, thank you so much. Any questions from the council before we open the public hearing? Seeing none, we will now open the public hearing. Is there anyone that would like to address the council on this application?
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. My name is Catherine Pasker. I'm an attorney from the firm of Parr Brown Gee and Lovelace, and I'm here representing Northrop Grumman, here as well as Lyndon DeYoung, senior project person,
Senior Director.
senior director of contracts. Apologies, Lyndon.
No,
At Northrop Grumman. Just wanted to be here to answer any questions from the mayor or council about this application. I think the history was well represented. This is a title cleanup matter, and willing to answer any questions.
Okay, I'll turn it to council. Any questions? Okay, no questions. Thank you so
Very
much for
much.
coming.
Yeah, thanks for your time.
Thank you. All right, anyone else that would like to speak? Okay, seeing none, we will close the public hearing, and I will now turn it to the council to consider ordinance 22-30.
Move to approve ordinance 22-30.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll turn it to Ms. Kamic for a roll call vote.
Councilman Nordfelt,
Yes.
Councilman Christensen,
Yes.
Councilman Hune,
Yes.
Councilman Herman,
Yes.
Councilman Fitzie Umanu,
Aye.
and Mayor Ling.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll now go to application SA2 2022, and I'll turn it to Mr. Pyle.
Thank you, ma'am. So the property in question located at 3745 West and 4100 South is probably better known as the old Granger Medical Site. And that had a condominium plat, not a condominium plat. I'm not sure my diction got going there. And approved back in December 2021. And the purpose for that was to be able to allow individual owners of space within the facility itself and the parking. And one of those potential owners has asked for slight modification for portions of the plat to accommodate their needs as they're buying. This will also affect a small area in the parking areas and in the common spaces, and will actually result in the reduction of a few of the common area parking spaces. However, all the parking requirements as well still fall within the city ordinances. And so therefore, ma'am, you have this item before you.
Okay, thank you. Any comments from the council? Or questions? Okay,
Just.
Oh,
one
yes.
comment. This, we've already, just so everybody knows, we've already approved a plat amendment on this months ago. This is just tweaking that plat amendment to a second amendment. So
yeah,
motion to approve.
thank you.
Second.
Second. Thank you. I was just going to finish up with, I think as businesses come in to occupy these
Yeah.
configurations, I think we're gonna have a lot of these because not everybody's just that little box.
Yep.
So we'll be ready.
Mayor, we do need to open and close the public hearing.
Thank you. You know, people are
too
just
quick,
all
sorry.
excited. All right, so we will open the public hearing. Is there anyone here that would like to speak? Okay, we will now close the public hearing, and I will turn it to the council to consider ordinance 22-31.
I'm not doing it again. Okay, motion to approve. SA 2
No, the 2230,
2230.
ordinance
Oh,
2230.
yeah, ordinance 2230.
One,
Thank you.
Second.
2231.
Oh, 31,
31.
sorry. Boy, we're really having a night. We're past our normal time. Okay. So seeing no other comments, I'll turn it to Ms. Kamic for a roll call vote.
Councilman Fitzie Umanu,
Aye.
Councilman Herman,
Yes.
Councilman Hune,
Yes.
Councilman Christensen,
Yes.
Councilman Nordfelt,
Yes.
and Mayor Ling.
Yes,
Motion passes unanimously.
thank you. And thank you for keeping us on track. So
No
we'll now
problem.
go to our resolutions. We have resolution 22-122. Mr. Pyle.
Thank you, ma'am. This is a resolution authorizing execution of 2 betterment agreements between West Valley City and UDOT. These are improvements associated with the Mountain View corridor, negotiated, presented, brought to the council, presented by UDOT, negotiated over a long period of time. And we are now in the mode of being ready to approve these two agreements. They total $1.384 million and come from various sources, including the general fund, Class C road funds, county transportation funds, stormwater utility, UDOT themselves supplied part of the funds of these, and they include improvements such as landscaping, lighting, speed humps, site furnishings on the trail, some street improvements themselves, and a number of other, oh, I almost forgot, stormwater utility improvements.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
All right, I will now turn it to council for comments or a motion.
Motion to approve resolution 22-122.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second, and we'll turn it to Ms. Kamic for a roll call vote.
Councilman Nordfeld,
Yes.
Councilman Christensen,
Yes.
Councilman Hune,
Yes.
Councilman Harmon,
Yes.
Councilman Fitzie Umanu,
Aye.
and Mayor Ling.
Yes,
Motion passes unanimously.
thank you. We now have our consent agenda with one item, resolution 22-123. Mr. Pyle?
It's a consent agenda item of a normal sort, ma'am. It's warranty deed, no cost. It's to facilitate some sidewalk improvements over at 2460 South, 3270 West.
Okay, thank you. I will now turn it to the council for a discussion or motion.
Motion to approve resolution 22-123.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second and a third, and we'll turn it to Ms. Kamic for the vote.
Councilman Fitzie Umanu,
Aye.
Councilman Harmon,
Yes.
Councilman Hune,
Yes.
Councilman Christensen,
Yes.
Councilman Nordfeld,
Yes.
and Mayor Ling.
Yes,
Motion passes unanimously.
thank you. Okay, we have just one motion left.
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you so much for coming out and participating. We really do appreciate when people show up.